All right. Can you see this keyboard? I know it's not huge or anything. Um,
I can see.
okay, so let's take a C major chord. All right. Most people would play a C major chord like this: middle C, E, and then G.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. I just want to say right up front, nothing wrong with that whatsoever. I've played a lot of piano in my life. I've played for a lot of church services, and I've done a lot of right. I've done a lot of this kind of stuff. Totally fine. Um, when you're talking in terms of composing or orchestrating, really arranging, um, if I'm going to write this for orchestra, this is not the most sonically pleasing way that I can write this chord.
Mm.
The reason for that comes down to the harmonic series. All right, uh, brass players will actually understand this very quickly. I don't know if you play any brass instruments or anything like that, but what brass players will do is they will have a fundamental note, and then they will be able to change that fundamental note to the harmonic series. And so brass players can actually get multiple notes depending on their embouchure. They can get multiple notes out of this single fundamental note that they have.
Hmm.
The reason that that's important for all of this is because um, the building blocks of physics and sound uh, create a way that things generally work best. So let's take that C chord. That's good, but it's not how the harmonic series is built up. The harmonic series, generally speaking, is built up like this. All right. So, again, generally speaking, um, I've got a C within that harmonic series. I'm
Hmm.
going to have the fifth above that, and then I'm going to have the third above that. Sorry, can you
Yeah.
hear my dog barking?
No,
Oh,
all
good.
good.
Um, so you're going to have these kind of patterns naturally show up in the harmonic series. Um, and so you're basically manipulating your arrangement to include this pattern. So I might, if I'm going to write C, then F, then C, right? It's a plagal cadence. I probably wouldn't write it like that. I would
Hmm.
probably write it like this.
Yeah. Wow.
And it does it sounds a little bit better. it's it's hard to describe exactly how it sounds better, but you can hear the richness and the fullness of it a little bit more.
Wow.
And
That
so
makes such a big difference.
it makes a huge difference. And like I said, nothing wrong with that, but
Yeah.
it just it's not the same.
It's like
It's not the same.
cursive in
It's like
music.
cursive. I love that. Yeah, it's like cursive. Right? And so it's like these little lessons that you can take just from how music is structured. And really, I hesitate to say this because I know nothing about science except for the very, very little portion that I know about kind of how sound is made up. Um, but really, it's kind of like the building blocks of the universe and mathematics and physics, and it's music. I mean, it's it's like we are interacting with the physical universe. And so there
Mhm.
are rules to the physical universe. So if there are rules to the physical universe, there are rules to music. And so
Yeah.
and I don't just mean like good boy, bad boy, like moral rules. I mean it in the sense of like uh you know,
Mathematical.
gravity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like these things exist. It's not about whether I pay attention to them or not. It's about whether they just exist. And so that's what you're talking about is you're talking about the laws of nature and and how they interact with audible beauty.
Hmm.
and and
Yes.
that's really interesting that there are rules to beauty. And so
Yeah.
now, does that mean that you have to follow the rule book 100% of the time? No, of course not. And I would never say that. And I would never, like, I would never want somebody to follow the rule book 100% of the time. But it's good to know it's there.
Yeah.
Like it's good to know that it exists, and then I can toss it out on its butt anytime I want to. But I'd rather not. I'd rather use it most of the time.
Work with it. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, I mean that's my big advice is you can and that's one of the things I would just explain to composers as well is look up the harmonic series.
Hmm.
Both in brass, like how does that harmonic series work, and starting to build chords similarly to how you would build them on the harmonic series. And so the best arrangers and orchestrators, all the way back to Bach, understood that this was more pleasing than this. And
Yeah.
so this isn't bad at all. It's a C major chord. This is better. It's round, it's full, it's beautiful. Why? Science. It's because
It
of the
just
rules of the
is.
universe. That's why.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
which is, I mean, it's weird, but and so that's kind of why I wanted to come at it from an approach of learning about it, as opposed to like you go into a music program and your teacher says, "Hey, you need to compose first, fifth, sixth. That's the way it's done. That's the way that you need to do it." And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. But if you come at it from the perspective of like literally any other way that you try and do it other than this is going to sound less sonorous because it's not following the building blocks of the physical universe, well, then that makes a pretty compelling case for maybe this is what I should be doing a lot of the time. Now,
Yeah.
there are moments where you don't want to do that. Like, I can think of a beautiful moment in Howard Shore's score for Lord of the Rings where, let's go an octave down. And I think he does a D minor chord, and let me pull that keyboard back up here real quick so you can see what I'm doing. Um, so he does and he does it in bassoons, I believe, bassoons and bass clarinet. Um, and it doesn't sound good, but it's perfect for the movie. So
Hmm.
that's a great example of like there are moments where you orchestrate for beauty, and there are moments where you orchestrate for the right creative choice, if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
absolutely. And just think about horror music or music that's supposed to make you feel uneasy. Then you don't
It's
do perfection. You
throw it
don't
out the
go.
window. Yeah, totally. You're 100% right. Exactly. So
Yeah.
there are moments in my life where it's like all I'm thinking about is the harmonic series and making things as beautiful as they can possibly be. And that Out of the Blue track, that's a great example. That was a moment where it's like, okay, this is a time where everything needs to be kind of like mathematically like perfect,
Yeah.
in a way. But then there are other moments, like you said, in horror movies where it's like throw the rules out the friggin' window. uh I want to make people feel like that's ugly.
Yeah.
Like that. And so that's perfect. Yeah, you nailed it.
Yeah. Awesome. You've named the harmonic series. You've said it so often. It's impossible for me not to look it up and study the harmonic
You
series.
definitely should. And really, even more, if you want to kind of understand how I'm talking about it, watch Leonard Bernstein's um, uh, lecture series at Harvard. That's
Hmm.
that's the big
That's
one.
free
And
online, right?
yeah, it should just be on YouTube for free. Um, I don't want to. brag, but I was just very excited about this. Like, I came up with a lot of these ideas before I watched that. And then I watched it and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is talking about exactly what I've been talking about for like years. So I was just so super excited about that. So definitely watch that. He explains it even better than I could. He does such a great job of talking through the whole thing.
Amazing. Definitely gonna look that up. And for everyone who's listening, you've got great advice and the next thing that you can take a listen to. Let's get back into the track, look at the strings, and also there's not so much percussion here, right?
No, very little. Very little. So here, I'll show you the strings first
Yeah.
for this big section right here. So nothing honestly particularly crazy going on there is I've got these chromatic lines. And then I've got these weird little uh flat six chords going on that make things seem really, really magical. Um, what chord is this? Okay, nice. So it's an E chord with a C in there. So I'll one more time. So that C is really, really important. So it's that flat sixth.
Hmm.
And so it just, yeah, it makes things seem super magical.
Yeah. Amazing. Um, all these different parts, it's a lot of it is octaves apart.
A lot of it, yeah, let's see. So, like, let me open this up. These in particular,
Mhm.
so yeah, that, and then you can see I break into chords towards the end there.
Hmm.
Octaves on the cello and the bass.
So one's cello, one's bass.
Yeah, one's cello, one's bass.
Hmm.
Octaves on the low brass, which I believe is tuba and trombone. So my trumpets are taking the bulk of the harmonic material there, framing the chords. And then what are my woodwinds doing? I think they're probably playing a supporting role to both the strings and the brass. Yeah, and so and a lot of those things like funny music is super woodwind heavy. It just
Hmm.
kind of, and so is like very witchy music, you know, like Harry Potter, right? Is super super woodwind heavy for whatever reason. It's just I think it's you know, I
Someone
actually
just
a
used it and
connotation
then.
thing from like Eastern Europe is
Hmm.
I think
Ah,
that it and I think that that almost gets into a very kind of like racially divisive thing, which is like I think that things like clarinets and bassoons and woodwinds are associated more with like uh you know with like wandering people from East Europe. and and so very it's kind of like how composers over time have gotten to a very sort of witchy sound is by kind of mocking that. sort of thing.
Perhaps, yeah. All right. And oh, you have a harp?
Yes, let's see. Nothing too crazy going on the harp. Let's see. So this is harp and piano.
Hmm.
So nothing particularly insane there. Harp and piano are doubling each other.
The
This
harp.
is kind of that magical motor is coming from the harp and piano doing that right there.
Yeah.
And you can hear, I mean, that makes such a huge difference in the let me see if I can mute those honestly.
And it sounds so magical. It's so
It
great.
sounds super magical. So yeah, it's just one of those, it's like the clocks, right? It does something really meaningful, but you're not particularly hearing it. You're just hearing the
Yeah.
effects of it.
Yeah. I I don't know who or where it was, but I was making my first piece of music that was actually listenable and that I saved. And it had an ARP in it. And a day later or something, I went on Instagram, I think, and then there was some guy who said under oh whatever video, if you can make music, just use an ARP. And I was like, ah, that's the first thing that I did. But which I mean is funny, but in this case, I mean the ARP really drives the music,
Hmm.
and I think maybe I'm
Are you saying harp or are you saying arp as in like arpeggiation?
arpeggiator. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the funny thing is that like this is actually it is in a sense kind of an ostinato, but it's totally moving. So it's following these chord structures that are going around. But yeah, I mean, you should use ostinatos in your work. They're the motor in so many times and places. So like this is very, very. If I took that out, then it would just be so boring. So boring.
Take it out for a second.
Oh yeah, definitely. Let me see. There's a few instruments doing it, so let me see what I can get here.
It has a whole different vibe.
It does, yeah. It's honestly, it's just a lot better. It's better writing, and it's also more appropriate for the movie. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, makes it more interesting. I think this is where the credits roll. So, and
it
then
is
there's something that's happening still. So,
exactly,
and not just it kind of, it sounds great without it too, but it's less interesting because there's less happening. And
exactly.
then if you're already rolling the credits, then maybe get the music interesting and instead of yeah for
Yeah,
everyone to
and
just shut off.
one of the things that I love the most, I mean, there's a couple musical moments that are very near and dear to me, and one of them is just the end of every Star Wars movie
Hmm.
where it goes at the end credits, and it's like it leaps into the end credits
Hmm.
instead of dying at the end credits. And
Yes.
what that does to you emotionally is it makes you feel like the movie that you just watched is about 10% better than it actually was because it's like the movie's done. I'm excited. This is great. And it's like, and so I think that most composers use that opportunity at the end of a film to stop the music.
Mm,
When no, no, no. That's your opportunity to send the audience out on a high note and make them feel like the movie that they just watched is important. Like it's very, very important. And so I think you'll notice that like some of the best scored movies of all time will make use of that very after end credits music.
yeah.
And it's a very important time in a movie because it's the sound, it's the only part of the soundtrack that's playing for the audience
Hmm.
and not just the film, right? Is it's the soundtrack of the audience feeling the movie as they walk out of the film.
Yeah.
Super, super
That's
important.
that's so great. Also, like it's so true when you meet a new person or watch a movie, the first or the most important thing is the first impression.
Hmm.
Obviously, you're not going to continue watching a movie if the first 10 minutes bored the heck out of you.
Absolutely.
But what's also as important as the first impression is the last impression.
Yes.
And that's why I love the
So
point that you
important.
just made. It's so true. Get the
Yes.
viewer excited about what he just watched. It's finished. Get them, bring them home on a high
Yes.
note, like
Yes.
energized. This was great what you just watched, and tell all your friends about it, and your family, everyone recommend the movie, like because, and it's not even maybe the movie could have been boring in the middle, or it doesn't matter as much anymore because the emotion that the viewer is having when he's going out of the movie
Yeah.
is high emotion, high energy. So that's what you just said. I love it.
Yeah.
It's so true.
It's so true. And I think so many composers, they're it's like, oh, the credits are done, so ra dum. It's like the music is done. Now the music is done. Go home. Bye.
Yeah,
Like, oh, such a missed opportunity. Like we want to send people out at being really excited about what they just experienced.
yeah,
Love
awesome.
it.
For the last part, let's take a look at the percussions,
Right.
and then we are, I think, done.
Let's see. I mean, I think it's very, very little.
Yeah, it's very little,
Let's
but
see.
it's always worth taking a look
Oh,
at.
totally. So again, nothing crazy. You can hear it in the background here. I mean, it's not like the other music. It's not like the Out of the Blue track that we talked about where the percussion is really important. If
Yeah,
I took all of this percussion out, you would miss something for sure, but it wouldn't kill you. I
yeah.
mean, it's expendable, but it helps. It helps a lot.
Also, very interesting choice of percussions. It's very metallic, what you
Yeah.
chose. Um, it's it's odd, and it makes for a eerie feeling. You're ending basically the short film, I think,
Hmm.
and it's a little eerie. And I think is that what you try to achieve with that exactly?
Yeah, I think there's a balance between it should sound a little scary and it should sound a little funny.
Mhm,
Like it should sound a little bit scary, like a weird sound, but also like a toddler is banging on pots and pans.
mhm.
Like it's kind of hopefully hitting the mark right between those two things. Now it's probably Also, what you're saying, it almost sounds like an anvil, right? So it's like it's almost
Very
like
industrial.
industrial. Yeah, totally. I think that was a moment where it's like, this is the closest sound that I have to what I'm going for, and this
Yeah,
is what
okay.
I'm going for. Which is funny though, because that's something that you can totally get away with when it's in the back of the mix, where it's like
Hmm.
you're barely hearing that at all, and so what you're getting is just a little bit of the feeling of it. And so, which is that, I mean, if I spent if I spent like a crazy amount of time on every ingredient that goes into every composition, then the composition would take me,
Years.
yeah, I mean, so long. So what tends to happen uh, is that you figure out which elements are in the front and you spend a lot of time working on those, making sure that they're right. The
Yeah,
further back you get into the mix, the less energy gets put into those. And so you just sort of have to prioritize which elements are going to get all the attention and which elements are going to not get as much attention and therefore, might not be worth spending the extra 45 minutes finding the perfect sound.
yeah,
Unless you're doing something like a huge, huge movie or thing where you just want to make sure everything is perfect. And there are
yeah.
moments for that, but it's like, but
You
I
have to
this one it's like, hey,
prioritize.
yeah, it works.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. All right. For the last part that's only interesting to me, I'm gonna cut it out, basically. Um, damn it, I have two things.
Oh, go
Uh,
for it.
First of all, you're working full time, right? As a music composer.
No. At the
Oh.
moment, I'm working about part-time.
Hmm.
And so the thing is that being a composer, it goes in and out. And so I've literally had months of my life or a month of my life where it's like I make I've made over like $50,000 in 1 month from composing for various video games and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And then there are sometimes years where not a lot of folks call you.
Yeah.
And so, especially when you're in this first part of your career, um, which I still am. I mean, I'm 33. At least I think I am. I have a hard time remembering. and and so I'm not young and I'm not old. I basically am still in the first 5 years of my career.
Yeah.
Um, and that's very young as far as being a composer. And Stephen Barton shared with me a piece of advice um, when I first started working for him, which is that a composing career takes about 10 to 20 years to get off the ground.
Hmm.
And so I'm on year 5. And so there's this balance that you have to figure out of how to make it in this industry. And I think I figured out a really good balance, which is you want to have a gig or a job that you can do that makes you good money but doesn't eat up all your time. You want to work on a little bit of library music, but not too much, especially if you don't like doing it. So library music is like licensed music, so extreme music or working on music for Universal Production House that gets put under reality TV or things like that, like or nature shows. Um, and then slowly over the course of 5 or 10 years, you'll start to see your income from royalties go up to maybe 5, 10, $20,000 per royalty statement, which comes in every 3 months.
Hmm.
Um, and then your custom work will start to come in really well, generally speaking, if you keep on going with it at about the 10 to 20 year mark.
Yeah.
And like I've said, I've gotten really lucky this year, and I did this stuff for Ryan Trahan. So I even, in some ways, am going ahead of schedule in some ways. Um, and so, yeah, and my other gig right now is that I tune pianos, and tuning pianos is great because I make about more or less $150 to $200 an hour. I tune pianos maybe one day a week, maybe 2 days a week, depending on the week, and and that's enough. And so the rest of my time, anywhere from 3 to 5 days a week, I spend on composing.
Yeah.
And so, and I'll probably keep on tuning pianos until, I'm making way more than I need to live in composing. And I think that day is coming. It's just a matter of when. And so you're living a career as an artist. And I think that a lot of people who are getting into composing need to know that you're not doing something where your financial trajectory it it's going to look a lot less like like a stockbroker on Wall Street, and it's going to look a lot more like Vincent van Gogh. And so that doesn't mean that you can never make money. Now, obviously, Vincent van Gogh died before he could make all the money that he would have made, but that's kind of the thing is that you are doing your best to tread water until you become very successful.
Yeah.
It can happen. It will happen. Don't give up. It'll come. And so, but you have to know what you're getting yourself into. You're getting yourself into 10 or 20 years of some roughage. You're gonna be in the in the tall grass for a little bit. Um, and then it can break and you can do really 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 well and have a great life doing things that you're really excited about, but it's not going to come all at once.
Yeah.
And so
Naturally.
yeah, and so and even with me it's like gosh, I've done Apex Legends, I've done Multiverses, I worked with Ryan Trahan, I've done all these things that are like really huge and big projects that I am really really proud of, and at the same time there have been years where I make all the money that I need to make from composing, and there are years where I don't make any money from composing. So you just have to figure out what your game plan is for making that work. And I if I had to bet on myself, and honestly, that's what my life is. I am betting on myself that I'm going to do these things. But if I had to bet on myself, I would say absolutely. In a matter of 10 years, you will see score composed by Blair Borland on a movie theater near you. You absolutely will. But it's gonna take time.
Yes.
So be ready for that. If you're interested in doing it for work, just be ready for that. It's hard, but it's good and it's passionate and it's fun and it's interesting and there's so much good stuff. So I don't want to put people off from doing it, but at the same time I do want to be realistic about the fact that yeah, I mean your life might look a lot closer to Van Gogh than Jeff Bezos.
Mhm.
Just be aware.
Yes. The reason why I asked this is, first of all, this is very similar to what a friend of mine who's also he's not doing financial advice. He's not a financial advisor, but he I I I don't remember the word, which is a little embarrassing. It's basically he has full control over your finance.
Okay.
And he says, know your number. You have to know your number of what you spend each month. And then if you want to do something, find something that covers this number. And with
Yeah.
the rest of the time, you can follow your passion, follow your dream, build
Totally.
something bigger. And so this is the reality of being a music producer. You have to cover the number that you need to survive, and with the rest you can make music.
Yeah.
It's if you just go full out into music, that's very risky. It can work, but
Yeah.
in your case you're working part-time tuning pianos, part-time making music, and that's a very smart thing to do. So your approach is probably better than 99.9% of everyone who's trying in the industry.
It's
And
funny. I agree and I disagree. And I think the only very little thing that I disagree about is that I think I am uh like please don't let this come across as defensive at all. I don't mean it in that way, but like I am risking everything. And I think that that's like I think you're finding ways to smartly risk everything. You know what
yeah,
I mean? Where it's like where
manageable risk.
Ex exactly, right? So it's definitely look, the reality is Sorry, I keep saying that. But for me, my reality is that if composing doesn't work out, I have put myself in a really weird position in life.
Mm.
I will be like 35 to 40 years old when I decide that composing has not worked out for me. And do I go back to school? Do I blah, blah, blah? I don't know. I don't know. I am risking my life on this. But I think that story and film and the arts is a worthwhile thing to risk your life on.
Yeah,
And I'd rather risk my life on it and fail than fail at being a portfolio manager. And that's just for me. I mean, obviously everybody has their own directions of where they're going, but for me, I kind of try and live by a bit of a phrase, which is no matter what you do in life, there's the chance that you might fail. So why not fail at the thing that you want to do instead of the thing that other people want you to do?
yeah,
Because if other people want you to be a doctor, you might fail at that thing. And then you've just failed at the thing that you didn't even want to do that's been put on you in the first place. So if you want to be a vet, if you want to be a composer, if you want to be, I mean, whatever that thing is that you'd like to do in your life, why not try that? Why not fail at that instead of failing at the thing that you don't care about?
Mm.
So and
That's so true. That's so
and that's
true.
what I'm trying to do is I deeply care about this thing, and I would be very happy to make my entire life about telling stories to people and making their lives a little bit better by telling stories. And I'm willing to risk my life to try and make that a reality. And so
Epic.
if I can do it
Yeah,
in a smart way, great. But you know what? I'd rather do it stupid than not do it at all.
yes. The reason why I asked this, whether you're working part-time or full-time, is because I am in finance. And again, how I asked other musicians, what's interesting to me is how you manage your money. What do you do to have your money work for you, or budgeting? That's interesting to me. If you want to open up about that, I can also cut it out if or
I'd
whatever.
honestly like to talk about it because composers don't like to talk about it. And I know why composers don't like to talk about it. And that's because it's messy and they're all doing worse than they want you to think they are.
Yeah,
and and I'm sure a couple of us are doing really really well financially, even those of us who are not like getting money from parents or anything like that. Um, and so I don't want to put everybody down, but uh, honestly, I think a lot of us are struggling, especially at this point in our careers, to make ends meet.
mhm,
So for me, I'm a good person and a bad person to ask about this. I'm a good person to ask about this because I have my head on straight and I'm doing the right thing. But to do the right thing, I'm doing the wrong thing for a little bit. And let me explain what I mean by that. Um, so, uh, I'm you're in finance. I'm assuming you know who Warren Buffett is.
obviously, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So Warren Buffett has a saying that there is no return on investment that you'll get that is greater than yourself.
Yeah, and I
And
totally agree with that.
absolutely right. So one of the things that he focuses on a bit is that when you're in the early stages of your career or being an entrepreneur, building your business, um, it is not super worth it to take your profit and put it in the S&P 500.
Yeah.
Now, that is generally speaking a good thing to do. Maybe long term, and nobody take this as financial advice. Don't take financial advice from me. Um, but generally speaking, S&P 500, that's a good way to get a decent return on your investment.
Mm.
At this time of my life, every penny that I get feeds back into my business. Every single one. Now, that is a smart move and a stupid move. And I want to be really upfront about that. Um,
Mhm.
is that I have some savings, and so it's not I don't when I say every single one, I don't mean every single one. But I do mean that the majority of my profit by a far margin, let's say 60 to 90% sometimes, um, goes back into classes for myself, gear. I mean, there's a million little things that are running a website, like
Libraries.
libraries.
They're
Um,
so expensive. It's
yeah,
incredible.
paying $25 a month for reel crafters so that I can send custom reels out to people and see how they're engaging with those. Um, so I'm investing heavily in myself right now. That investment may go uh, may go feet up at some point, but I am I am hoping and assuming that it won't, because I work hard, I do great work, um, and I'm going for it. So yeah, my money goes back into my art at the moment. Um, Most of everything that I make gets funneled back into trips to LA to network and meet with people. It goes into the computer that I'm meeting with you on right now, which was a huge chunk of change. It goes into headphones. It goes into building myself a custom desk. I mean, that was only like $200, but still, it was $200. Like, like there's a lot of
Yeah.
things you can do with $200. Um, and so, uh, my whole life is set up around the notion right now that I am delaying the money that I'm making in this life till later.
Yeah.
Um, and
Especially in this business, you get royalties. It's
yep,
yeah, not out of touch to do that. So
absolutely. And so, and I'll be totally transparent. Like I think I've made this year, uh, like my last royalty check was in the realm of like $3,000 or something. And which is great. That's better. And so every time that I get a royalty check, it's growing by like 30% or something like that. And so I'm working on it, and it's getting better and better. And so I definitely see the time coming in the next 5 years, even just from royalties alone, where if I don't want to tune pianos, I don't have to. The thing is, I actually kind of like it. It works for me. You make fantastic money. I mean, I make like lawyer money from
mhm.
tuning pianos, which is great. So I'm really happy with it, and I even just for the sake of getting out of the house one day a week in 5 years, even if I'm making 100 grand a year from royalties, I think I'm going to keep tuning pianos because I kind of like it. But I might not. Maybe I'll be scoring the next Avengers movie and there'll just be no time for it. So it's like, so who knows what's going to happen? But I am funneling my money towards investing in myself to make sure that I have a fair shake at scoring the next Avengers movie.
Yeah,
And so, is that a risk? You bet your ass it's a risk. And it's a risk that may not go very well. But I'm prepared for that. I mean, I know that. And so like I said, I'm a good and a bad person to talk to about this because it's like, would I suggest for other people to go about life the exact same way that I'm doing it? Uh, it depends on the person, probably not. I mean, certainly not if I was a financial advisor. Um,
yeah,
but um, but as a composer, I know what I'm doing. My dad is a CFA, so he's a certified financial analyst. So he's like a super big finance guy. Like I know what I'm doing and I know the risks that I'm taking.
yeah,
Um, and it might not go my way. So so as long as you know that, as long as you know it might not go your way, then take the risk. And I'm taking the risk. We'll see how it pays out.
definitely.
Yeah.
All right, that's I love the perspective and to really get to know it because this is the reality and a lot of people don't see it or don't like to see it or only see people on YouTube who are teaching this stuff and living the life, it seems.
Yeah.
But like for most of people, it's not like that. It's the same as if you would look into an actor's life. Like
Yes.
there are the top who you
Yes.
see everywhere and they
Oh
have
man.
everything.
Yeah, they make
But
$7 million on one movie and then they don't work for 5 years.
yeah.
It's yeah, that's exactly what my life is like. I mean, minus the $7 million at this point. But I have made great amounts of money in short amounts of time, just not $7 million.
Yeah, but you get it. It's like
Yes,
for most of the people that are acting, this is not the reality. And to really get there, you have to think that right now, the people that are going to take the places of the people that are on top right now, they're
yes,
just in the making right now. So
yes,
so I don't know who scored the theme for the Avengers, but if you want to work on the Avengers movies in the future, you
yes.
are in the making right now, and we are all
Exactly.
going towards our bigger goals. So next Elon Musk, next Hans Zimmer,
Yeah,
they're not going to be really the next Hans Zimmer. They're going to be themselves, but they're going
absolutely.
to take their place. And so amazing to really see that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I honestly, I think you summed up what I'm going for like perfectly. I mean, that's really what my aim is to not be the next John Williams, not be the next Hans Zimmer, be the first Blair Borland and
Yeah,
to and invest in myself and be like really freaking great at this. And
yeah,
I'm okay with hitting my stride as a composer when I'm 40 or 50. No problem with that. That's fine. I just have to know that it might take that long for the really good money to start coming in.
yeah. You have to be prepared for
Exactly.
that.
Exactly.
Awesome. 3 hours again. I think this is going to be the standard in the future for the podcast. But it was so amazing.
Oh, I'm
Your
glad.
tracks are amazing, and
Thanks,
you're
man.
such a nice guy. And I really enjoyed talking to you and really looking into your projects and the transparency. I love it. I thank you so much for your time
Dude, thank you
and
so much.
everything.
I
Yeah.
really enjoyed myself.